So last season was a mixed bag for me, especially as a Knicks fan. There were high expectations going into the season with the moves of bringing in Karl Anthony Towns and bringing in Mikal Bridges and re-signing OG Anunoby. The expectations were kind of through the roof. I mean, some people thought the team could make the finals. A lot of people had them as a conference finals team and probably losing to the Celtics, but nonetheless, the expectations were higher than they'd ever been. And I'd say the regular season was really disappointing. At least to me, it was. Yes, they had a surprising playoff run, but I thought the season overall was just meh. And I can't really get too nostalgic about it. I don't know what it is. It's just maybe that the fact that you got past Boston and then you lost to the Indiana Pacers again in the conference finals this time, it kind of sucked. But now the window has never been more open. With the injuries to Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton, which obviously suck for the game of basketball, the Knicks window is super open. Like I said, never been more open. And I'm going to say this. The Knicks so far in the preseason, they looked pretty good. They looked pretty solid. And yes, forgot to mention, Tom Thibodeau, not the coach, but if you're a basketball fan, pretty sure you already knew that. So let's talk about these new look Knicks. And when I say new look, I mean more just systematically, the principles of the team. Because the players on the roster are pretty much the same. I mean, they made some little tweaks around the edge, but the core of the roster is still the same. So let's get into it. I think this team in the preseason just had a different feel offensively compared to the Tom Thibodeau era. Now, granted, old habits die hard. It takes a while for certain things to just go away. But what I did like about this team offensively in the preseason under Mike Brown is you could tell there's an effort to get out and just run. Get out, push the pace. I know they were one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the league in pace in the preseason. But you could tell the effort is there. They're trying to get some good early shot clock shot attempts. They're moving. There's player movement. It's not stagnant. And that's something you wanted to see from this team, especially with this core talent of guys, because the offense is going to have to be their bread and butter. You look at them defensively, the personnel isn't great. It's okay at best. Offense is where they're going to get their money. And if they're not a top 5 offensive team, they're probably not a championship team. That's just the straight facts, in my opinion. Unless their defense took a magical rise and they were one of the best defensive teams in the league, which I don't see happening. At best, I see them like slightly above average. They're going to have to be an offensive juggernaut. And I think they can with Mike Brown as the new coach of this team. Some preseason stats that I wanted to look at, or at least I noted as important, were they were 10th in three-point attempts. And you might be asking, why is that important? Well, let's just say under Tibbs, so I think every year under Tibbs was like this, but percentage-wise, they shot a pretty good percentage, but they never got enough attempts up, especially these past 2 years where you feel like the personnel was right. Like they had the guys to get those attempts up. They just never did. It was very ISO heavy. Jalen Brunson cook, which, sometimes it's fun to watch, but at times, especially against really good teams, that's stressful. That is stressful. You're playing slow. You're watching this guy try so hard to get a bucket, and he can get buckets, but it's just over the course of a 7-game series, it's just very likely that's not going to be successful. And they need to get out there and they need to get guys involved, which is why I mentioned, quality player movement. Seeing guys cut, seeing guys flow off screens is a huge thing for this team. Just getting out and just featuring guys like Mikal Bridges, featuring OG Anunoby more, featuring even Karl Anthony Towns a little bit more than he did last season, despite having a really good year. You want to see guys get involved. And that was something for me I wanted to look at. Are they getting three-pointers up? Are they getting out and running? Those were important stats to look at, and I know, like I said, the pace wasn't great, but like I said, the effort was there, and that's what matters to me. I think over the course of the year, they'll kind of figure out their way, and it won't be as much of an issue. If they can be a slightly above average team in pace, that's a good thing for me, because this team has been pretty much in the bottom half of the league in pace every year Tibbs was here. And this is not to diss Tibbs. I think Tibbs was a really good coach, and I think he did his job for the organization. He brought them from the pits of hell. The team was in the gutter, and he made them competent along with Julius Randle and those sorts of things. But it's winning time. This team has to go out and compete for a championship. And I don't think he was the guy. I know some people will disagree, and that's your opinion. But I feel like he wasn't the guy, and it was shown, especially down the stretch of that playoff run, that it was you weren't getting that far with him as the lead guy if you kept him another season. Another thing to look for this team, the starting five issues last season with Josh Hart in the lineup played a huge factor in this team being just unsuccessful, in my opinion. And they finally kind of went to a lineup change in the conference finals, which is crazy that it took till the conference finals to make a starting five change. But if you remember, they made Mitchell Robinson a part of the starting five instead of Hart. And it kind of worked. It was an improvement, but you didn't experiment. You didn't experiment until your back was basically against the wall and it was almost over. And at least I feel like with Mike Brown, you see he's making an effort to try different things. Even if it's preseason, he's trying different things. And Tibbs didn't do that. And now it seems like this season that Mitchell Robinson is going to be in the starting five this year. I guess you want his rim protection. You're still going to get something on offense with the offensive rebounding, so extra possessions will be nice. And it's fine. I mean, obviously there's pros and cons to him being in the lineup, but it's okay. I think it should fare out to be better than Josh Hart being in the starting five last year. And this leads into kind of like the next topic of this discussion, which is the minutes. The minutes last season were crazy. And I know the minutes really, I don't know if it played a huge factor in them, ultimately not coming up with the goal of making the finals, but it was crazy to see. I mean, I think 4 of their 5 starters were like in that top 6 of highest minutes per game players in the league. Something along those lines. I think minutes will be something that it'll probably be scaled back and they'll lean a little more into their bench, which goes to my point earlier in the video of the team adding some nice things just around the edges of the roster. Bringing in Jordan Clarkson on a vet minimum, bringing in Yabusele to be a part of the rotation should bring some shot making that was needed because last year, Campaign, Delon Wright, Landry Shamet, even though Shamet wasn't horrible in the postseason, I thought in the regular season he wasn't great. The bench is a little more filled out. They have some guys. They could bring some versatility. Should bring some shot creation from Clarkson as well, which hopefully it works out. Hopefully Clarkson works out as an addition to this team because he could be huge if it all goes well. He has his flaws of taking wild shots. Shot selection is crazy, but he also brings the ability to get his own bucket. And this team needs some of that because you look at this roster, it's kind of a weakness for them. It's Brunson. I know Anunoby showed some shot creation ability towards the end of last season, but he's not a guy I'm going to fully trust. Cat is a guy that needs to get set up. And Mikal Bridges is okay. So you need another guy. And if Clarkson can step up and be that guy, that should be good for this team because they need that. And I just think that this team, it's like, these are the highest expectations they've had since 1994-95. I think if they don't make the finals this year, you can ask the fair question of like, are they ever going to make the finals with this group? And I know, like I said, it's year 2 of the core being together, but no Tatum, no Halliburton. These guys are, especially Halliburton, the boogeyman to this team the past couple seasons. Tatum, the Celtics. The Celtics are always a juggernaut. Now, granted, their roster has changed a lot, but Jason Tatum is Jason Tatum. And Jalen Brown, we'll see what happens down the future with him in Boston, but as long as those 2 guys are together, the Celtics are always going to be competitive. So you knock 2 championship contending teams out of the picture. It's Cleveland, dark horse is Orlando, and then like puncher's chance of Atlanta or Detroit making an upset. But you're right there with Cleveland to make a run. And if you can't make the run this year to get to the finals and win a championship, the discussions are going to be had of like, can this core do it? Is there too many flaws within the core to get it done? I think they have what it takes, but they're going to have to obviously prove it on the floor. And it kind of segues into the offseason topic, not to even really dive into it too heavy, but like the Giannis idea. I know they aren't like the top team to get him when it comes to assets, but it would make sense if this team went after a Giannis, especially if they have a disappointing year this year, because they have guys. They just, if it comes to the point where it looks like they need an extra push, that can be an avenue they look towards. But yeah, this team has what it takes. I think they're finally going to lean into their strengths, which is nice. Instead of playing Tibbs ball, they're going to go and actually play basketball that fits the roster. And I think it's a pretty easy assessment, if injuries don't strike this team crazy, that they'll probably win mid 50s, around there in the mid 50s, low 50s if like they really scale back to a lot, like a full extent, and just be like, all right, whatever, we'll use the regular season to like, just see what we could get better at, use it for data going into the postseason, see what we're good at, what we're not good at, give guys time off. Maybe they can finish lower than the mid 50s if that's the case, but this team should be a mid 50s win caliber team, and they should be at most in the conference finals, and it should be like competitive against Cleveland if that happens to be the conference finals matchup later on in the year. This team can do it, but there's going to be some things to watch for because last season we said the same thing, and yeah, the result was, conference finals loss, but it wasn't pretty. That's it, I'll say that. But overall, I'm excited for the team. I think they're going to be really good, and they should be one of the top 4 teams that can hold that trophy when it all ends. And we'll see where they're ranked within that top 4 when the time comes.